So this is my infinite Fluffal's Gate deck. Since I use Fusion Gate, you can say it's the infinite Fluffal Fusion's Gate deck. But infinite Fluffals is simple enough to call it, right? Well, the main idea is you'll be using Fusion Gate. You won't always be using Fusion Gate. Sometimes you'll use polymerization, or you use Al's ability on the field to fuse. But typically, you might end up using Fusion Gate since it's continuous. You can use it more than once per turn. So that's very useful when you're trying to get to a specific fusion. We have Exodios to help you recycle your monsters. Also has the ability when it attacks, you can send a monster from your hand or graveyard. Or deck to the graveyard. The main target I sent to the graveyard is Edge Imp Sabers. So that's something I like to do. And of course, this helps you. Exodios helps you recycle your extra deck. So moving on with the list. If this card, this is Edge Imp Sabers. If this card is in your graveyard, you can place one card from your hand on top of your deck to special summon it in the defense position. You can only do this once per turn. So it's a good way of guarantee that he'll be on the field for you to use to fuse. Whether you're using Fusion Gate or polymerization, or even using Fluffal Owl's ability. And he's the main fusion material for pretty much all your fusions, so it's very important to get him out onto the field as soon as possible. Since he's a 3-star fiend, we have Tour Guide to help with that process out. We do have Fluffal Dog, which can search it out if you want, but you could also use it to search out any Fluffal. We have Fluffal Bear. He will let you recycle your polymerization. While he's on the field, you contribute this card, target one polymerization in your graveyard, and add it to your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. One thing that sucks. No, I think you could do it because this will resolve in the graveyard. You can use Stitching Reborn to bring back Fluffal Bear and then tribute Fluffal Bear to get polymerization because his effect will resolve in the graveyard. Tributing should be a cost. I don't remember trying that. I think I did, but I don't remember. But I know I definitely soul charged to pull off that polymerization play. So it's up to you to, test stitching with Fluffal Bear, see if that plays out. But typically, if you're going to use stitching or soul charge, you're doing a much bigger play. You may even be doing just an exceed play, so it really doesn't even matter. Fluffal Dog, as I mentioned, when you normal or special summon Fluffal Dog, you can add a Imp Saber or a Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand. So this is your searcher. Plus, he's a nice low for 1700, so it's very useful for attacking with this little dog. Fluffal Owl, when normal or special, you can add a polymerization card from your deck to your hand, which is important to get the polymerization. Also, we have King of the Swamps, which is also for the purpose of getting you polymerization. The difference between this and Owl is that this you could discard from your hand to get polymerization. That way you can still summon something else like Fluffal Dog to add Edge Imp, and then play the polymerization to use Edge Imp and the dog in order to fuse. So you have 6 ways to get polymerization from the deck to your hand. You got one way to get it from your graveyard to your hand, or technically 3 because you got 3 bearers to get it from the graveyard to your hand. And with Exodios recycling all those bad boys, you can infinitely polymerizate, which is the idea, right? Moving on to Exodios, of course, as I mentioned, he's to recycle. His summoning to recycle all your monsters. You don't send all your monsters in your grave back to your deck or extra deck. It's a condition, not an effect, so it can't be negated. You know what I mean? They can negate Exodios summoning with like warning or something, but you'll still send all the monsters back anyway because that's a condition. So it will guarantee, you will be able to guarantee your infiniteness regardless of what your opponent does. Alright. Also, I use them kind of like a foolish burial to get edge into the graveyard, or get any of the fluffals that I need in the graveyard, since some of them have, you know, effects that could be used again and again. So you can always soul charge them in the following turn, right, to get their effects. King of the Swamp can substitute as a edge imp. So it's like having 3 edge imps, because there was a play where I had King of the Swamp on the field and I had Fluffal Owl on the field. I used Fluffal Owl's effect and it allowed me to use Fluffal Owl and King of the Swamp. So obviously King of Swamp substitute as edge imp saver and allow me to go into my Pfeiffer Tiger is the one that I went into. So that was pretty cool, right? Moving on. So right there is a good soul charge play. Play soul charge, bring back this, pay 500 of this, and then boom, you can fuse right into a Pfeiffer Tiger and pop 2 cards on the field. Fusion Gate, when while this card is on the field, either player can fusion summon using without using polymerization, but the fusion materials are banished instead of being sent to the graveyard. So you banish the materials on your side field or hand, and you know, you can fuse, and you can do it multiple times. Polymerization, obviously this allows you to fuse using monsters on your side field and your hand as fusion materials. Stitching Reborn lets you target one Fluffal or Pfeiffer monster in your graveyard special sign, but its effects are negated. You can only activate one of these per turn. MST, obviously quick play that lets you destroy spells and traps. This would be good against stuff that would stop you from special summoning or fusion summoning. Plus it will just get rid of any backward that's problematic. Twin Twister will help you essentially turn an extra card you discard into an MST, basically, right? So you can pop 2 spells and traps. So with Twin Twister, 1 MST and another card, let's say Edge and Sabers, you can destroy 3 spells and traps in 1 single turn with those 3 cards. So that's the usefulness of Twin Twister. You can turn any extra card you have, especially if it's like a dead draw or something you don't need, like the extra Will of Decree. It'll turn it basically to an MST, so that we can get rid of more back row. Plus you can use this against, in case you want to pop Pendulum Scales, pop the 2 monsters in the pendulum zones and, slow down your opponent from pendulum summoning. Well, the Decree will help shut down any floodgates, any battle traps, so forth and so forth. So now you can, fuse and battle and just play the game without any interruptions. Necrophase will help you recycle all the monsters you banish with Fusion Gate. Maybe monsters were banished by your opponent's card effects. Might even hurt your opponent who does banish in order to trigger effects and stuff, and maybe they need monsters removed from play in order to get effects or power boost or something. You can play Necrophase and take that away from them, returning everything back into their deck, so that way they lose whatever advantage they were gaining from stuff out of play. Plus, Necrophase itself gets strong, so if you go up against a deck that banishes a lot, that's useful. To have this, you banish, once you summon Necrophase and put everything back, you can make him pretty strong. So he's kind of like an extra little boss monster, basically. A nice little beater sometimes. I've gotten him to 2900 a couple times before. I've gotten him even stronger than that a couple times, but typically I got him to 29 a couple times. So that's always useful. And of course he plays with Exodios. Exodios, whenever it's removed from the field after you summon it, it banishes itself. So you definitely need Necrophase in order to add that back to the deck, so you can infinitely Exodios. And of course Exodios has to put Necrophase back from the graveyard back into your deck, and then if one of your necrofaces matters, you can use your second one to bring it back into your deck, and you get the idea. Infinite. That's the point of the infinite in the deck name. Then we got tour guide, just so you can search out your edge imp, and you can go into rank 3 exceed plays. We got Zen main and Acid Golem as your targets for that, and soul charts, so you can set up defense, make plays. Typically, you want to make a fight for a tiger play, so you can destroy your opponent's field, because you can essentially bring back, imp, owl, maybe a bear or a dog or something like that, right? Get dog's effect to search, and then you can use owl's effect to offer all 4 of the monsters to make a fight for tiger. And then, since you use 4 materials to make him, you can pop 4 cards, so you can essentially wipe out your opponent's board with that off of 1 soul charge play. It will cost you about 4,500 life points, but to gain advantage and destroy your opponent's field, it's worth it, right? Zen main is for defense mainly, 20 to 100 defense. If it would be destroyed by battle card effect, you can detach a material and destroy a card on the field during the end phase in the turn in which that effect was applied. Acid Golem, just a beater, nice little 3000 beater. It's useful under skill drain, in case you end up going up against somebody who's playing skill drain and you don't have your MST or your Royal Decree yet. You might want to do an edge imp play where you special summon edge imp and then summon one of your 3-star monsters, overlay and make Acid Golem, and then use Acid Golem as your beater and stall until you can get your twisters or something, so that way you can go into some actual plays or just win with Acid by himself. Rhapsody and Berserk, useful in case you need to get rid of stuff from your opponent's graveyard that could be problematic, especially if it's something like a Stardust Assault mode or something like that. You negated one, like your polymerization or something with Assault mode, for example. Then you could be like, alright, I summon Fight for a Dog, search out something, whatever I want, Soul Charge, or even Stitching Rebirth, another dog from the graveyard, overlay, make Rhapsody and Berserk, and then detach material to get rid of that Assault mode, along with the Stardust Dragon that's in the graveyard that was used to make the Assault mode. Get rid of both of them, right? Why not? That way they can't make another Assault mode with the Stardust they already have in the grave, and make things harder for them, things better for you. And that's just an idea, right? You can also use Rhapsody and Berserk against Light Sworns and anything else, Burning Abyss, any graveyard decks, Machina Fortress, Grapha from the Dark Worlds, so forth and so forth. You get the idea. Cast still good for getting rid of anything problematic that's face up on the field, like a big strong monster. They can't be destroyed by card effects, so use this instead, since this does not destroy, or they have, I don't know, they might have a continuous spell card that prevents you from playing spell cards or something, right? Or they just have they have something problematic, something that you want to get rid of. That's what Skyblast is for. Constellar M7, most of your fusions are 6, so you can overlay 2 of them to make M7 and detach, and then bounce a monster on the field back to the owner's hand, or in each player's graveyard back to the hand, whichever one you choose. Typically I choose my own graveyard to add stuff from my graveyard to my hand, like an Exodius, for example, so I can reuse the Exodius, so I can use the Exodius to recycle everything, or get a Necroface in case I need Necroface, or a Tour Guide, or whatever I need. I get, or let's say I want to make a fusion play, I can use this to get back the bear, summon the bear, tribute, and get the polymerization from the graveyard to my hand. Or in one scenario I actually use M7 to add Swamp, King of the Swamp to my hand, then discarded it to get the polymerization and made a fusion play after that. Then we got 2 of each of the fusions that I like to use. There's a couple other ones. There's the Chimera. For some reason I don't see it in Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro. It's probably in somewhere in there. I don't know why I didn't see it with all the other Fluffals. Maybe it has a different name other than Fight for whatever. Maybe it doesn't even require Fluffals to make, which is probably why it didn't pop up, because I just typed up Fluffals. Let's see. If I type up Fight for, yeah, that's what it is. So he is in there. So if I type up Pfeiffer, he comes up because he needs 3 Pfeiffer monsters, not Fluffals, to make. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm not using them in this build, but to each their own. I do have Pfeiffer Leo though, using Edge Imp Saw. And the way you'll substitute that is obviously use King of the Swamp in order to make Pfeiffer Leo, because we have Edge Imp Sabers, not Saw. And a Fluffal monster, and then that's how you can make Pfeiffer Leo. The effect is you can target one face of monster your opponent controls destroyed, and if you do inflict damage to your opponent equal to the original attack of the destroyed monster, this card cannot attack directly the turn you activate this effect, but it can attack your opponent's monsters. You can use this ability once per turn. So obviously that's really awesome. 2400, they can pop a monster and burn your opponent is always good. Pfeiffer Saber Tiger requires 1 Pfeiffer fusion monster and 1 or more Fluffal or Edge Imp monsters. When this card is fusion summoned, you can target 1 Pfeiffer monster in your graveyard, special summon all Pfeiffer monsters you control, gain 400 attack. If this card was fusion summoned using 3 or more monsters, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Typically I use 2 monsters to make them, but one time I did use 3 to make it, but typically I always tend to just use 2 monsters to make him, and usually using Fusion Gate, and he becomes a 2800. But one time I did summon him with Owl's effect, so I did trigger his ability of bringing back. It was Bear, because Bear, brought it back, destroyed a monster, got stronger by 1000. Plus it was already getting 400 from Saber Tiger, so it was a 26 when it attacked, and then it became a 36, and then became a 46, and it was just delicious, right? Moving on, and the main one I tend to fuse typically first turn. The second one I could summon first turn in some plays is Pfeiffer Bear, but I do like making Wolf because he can essentially OTK. He requires an Edge Imp Saber and 1 or more Fluffal monsters. This card can attack a number of times each battle phase up to the number of fusion materials used for its fusion summon. So that's great, because if I use 2 fusion monsters, he can attack twice, so that's 4,000 damage. If I use 4 monsters to make him, he can attack 4 times. That's 8,000. That's OTK right there, right? So he's a win condition if you use him right. Pfeiffer Tiger, 1 Edge Imp Sabers and 1 or more Fluffal monsters. You can only control 1 Pfeiffer Tiger, so that sucks, right? Only 1 at a time. When this card is fusion summoned, you can target a number of cards on the field up to the number of fusion materials used for its fusion summon, destroy them. All Pfeiffer monsters you control gain 300 attack for each Fluffal or Pfeiffer monster you control. So he can get pretty strong. He becomes 200 by himself. If you summon a monster, he'll become 20, 25, and so forth, and get stronger and stronger. I've seen him like at 3,500, while Saber Tiger was like at 4,200, something like that, because I had like a couple of these monsters on the field, so it was pretty nice. And a Pfeiffer Bear requires an Edge Imp Sabers and 1 Fluffal Bear, which we have a bear, right? When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can equip this monster with that monster as if it's a equip spell card and gain 1,000 attack. So this is a good way of making it where your opponent doesn't get his monsters to go to a graveyard, so he can't reuse them for whatever he wants to reuse them, so that way it makes it hard for him to Monster Reborn them or call a Haunter, Sword Hearts them or whatever, and it just makes your monster stronger and stronger and stronger, and that's always good. To a monster that just gets stronger and stronger and stronger, increases your chance of winning, and that's in the deck profile.